the first NYCHA Youth Advisory Group for the Vision for the Marine Terminal project. Just a bit of housekeeping before we sort of officially get started. The task force leadership, which we'll get into the task force more as part of this presentation, they've asked us to record all the meetings to sort of increase transparency so the public can know kind of what folks are talking about, and there can be just really like direct access to the discussions. So we just wanted to make sure with everyone who's participating if that's okay with you all. We've been video recording the other meetings, and those will get posted to the website, to the project website. We can also just do an audio recording if folks are more comfortable with that. If folks are not comfortable with the recording, we don't have to put anything online at all. We would like to record so we can for note-taking purposes. But yeah, just so I want to hear from folks directly. Are you comfortable with recording? Any concerns? This is a safe space. Like, feel free to speak freely. Like, there's no concern from our end if you don't feel comfortable.
I don't want a video record either. I'm fine video recording.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany said she's okay with it.
I didn't want a video record.
You want audio then?
Audio is okay with me if people are okay with it, but it's up to the group.
Ms. Mondale, how do you feel?
Well, I feel when one person says something in a group, then we have to defer to that person. So because she's not comfortable with video, I think we should just do audio.
You're good with audio?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for the option, and audio is fine for me.
I'm okay with audio. Audio?
Audio is fine.
Okay. Let's do audio first.
I'm eligible for a job, but no ask for one. I'm new to yeah, this is the going to it.
How do you do? Can you hear us?
What was that?
Do you know how to turn the volume up for the speakers?
Did you do it on the computer?
I did, but I don't think
Let me see if I can do it on the TV too.
changing. Yeah. Just get a little bit louder. Great. And just to catch you up, thank you for joining. We just discussed audio recording the meeting to post online. That was a request that came from the task force leadership, and so just wanted to see if you're comfortable with us doing an audio recording and posting that to the website for transparency.
Yes.
Okay. That's okay. We'll folks online, just make sure when you speak loudly, and we'll make sure that we're. Okay. Never mind, we got it. We'll find out. Okay. And I think for future meetings, we'll also try to print the presentation for everyone so they can have it. But just thank you, NYCHA, for hosting us and for sharing this advisory group. The goal of today's meeting is really just to make sure everyone understands the engagement process and sort of what we're going to be working towards as part of this visioning process. We have some sort of like high-level opportunities and constraints we want to sort of discuss with you and get your feedback on. That's work that's coming out of the planning team. I think high level, we really want to sort of collect an initial set of priorities and concerns so we can take that to the planning and project team, sort of inform their work going forward. And then this last bullet here, identifying questions that the group has that we want to explore further for additional resources or information that the group needs.
Sabina,
to provide.
this is the printed copy for you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll do some introductions at the beginning. We'll have a little bit of process overview so folks understand what's happened and what to expect. We'll talk about the engagement to date, sort of opportunities and constraints, and then have a lot of time at the end for discussion. But again, this should be like informal. We want it to be conversational, so if folks have questions, things that they want to discuss as we go through, definitely feel free to interrupt me because I don't want this to be just like a long presentation. So definitely folks feel free to chime in. And folks who are joining virtually, we can't see you, so definitely feel free just to sort of like interrupt. And we'll also try to check in on you as well. So let's kick off with some introductions. So we're going to ask everyone to share their name, organization, or group that you're affiliated with. And then the NYCHA has started to introduce these kind of icebreakers as well. So what's your experience with the Brooklyn Marine Terminal? It can be like you've never heard of it, you don't know what it is. maybe you've been on a cruise, maybe you've already been involved with this process. We've got some task force members here. And then also, what do you hope will come from this advisory group process? And so maybe, Catherine, can I ask you to kick us off?
Yeah.
Is that for you?
Catherine McBride, she, her, we didn't put pronouns, so it could be pronouns too. Red Hook Initiative. My experience with the terminal, so I did get to go to the terminal, like unrelated to this, with the EPA a couple months ago, and so I got to actually see it, which was really interesting. I think I've only ever like seen it, and had never been inside before that. And what I hope comes from this process, I hope that we can really center public housing in our discussion, and that we can develop some questions and recommendations. I'll pass it to the list.
My name is Karen Blondell. I'm the president of Red Hook West. And since Ms. Brown isn't here, by default, the proxy for Red Hook East as well. I'm also an organizer around environmental justice in this community. I have some experience with the Brooklyn Marine Terminal. I know the Red Hook Container Terminal pretty well. I get donations from them several times a year. I've gotten over probably 2 million pounds of produce, as well as thousands of turkeys and chickens and other things throughout the pandemic that was distributed in Red Hook as well as other communities. I also know right next door, the Brooklyn Bridge, there was a Loeb Fellow. I'm a Loeb Fellow from the Harvard GSD, and I think it's Pamela Conrad. She actually was very instrumental in the design and the subsequent Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is beautiful. And I guess my experience more lays between like the architects, the urban planners, and the community. So when I look at a space like the Brooklyn Marine Terminal, and I know the community loves open space, I also know the dynamics around how do you pay for those spaces. So in my mind, I'm a consensus builder across Red Hook and Gowanus, where I'm able to literally maybe use Legos to quickly give a concept of air rights to a population like public housing residents. I work very closely with this organization, Red Hook Initiative, as well. We do a lot of collaborations together around educating the residents here, and I've subsequently previously worked for the Fifth Avenue Committee. What I hope will come out of this advisory group? Well, at first I thought I wanted just something really similar to what happened in Gowanus, which is we were able to secure $240 million from the city for comprehensive modernization of the Gowanus and Wyckoff developments. And that was because this big rezoning was being planned for Gowanus, yards away from where they lived, and they lived in disrepair. And so we were able to get the entire community to prioritize public housing, and I'm looking to do that here with a little twist. And that is, we know that it's not a lot of space based off of what has to be in that particular BMT zone and what's already there, like the container terminal and things like that. But I also remember past conversations in Red Hook with Resilient Red Hook and other entities where they wanted to put a microgrid on the Red Hook Houses campus. And we was like, hell no, because we looked at the wattage. The wattage went from like 4 megahertz or mega whatever it was to over 100. And I didn't think that that was a good project for the Red Hook Houses. For the second reason, which is our wiring in the project is so old. When they open up the container where your socket is, it literally crumbles in your hand. So Con Ed and them told us in Red Hook we couldn't use these new systems because we would need an upgrade of our electric inside of the units. And that's costly. I'd like to see some type of collaboration over here that allows for that energy that the rest of Red Hook needs, resilient Red Hook, stuff that Reddy wants to do, stuff that we like to innovate out here, in conjunction with New York Power Authority or some other entity, including maybe Equinor with this wind stuff, where we're actually making some type of power or storage safely somewhere in that BMT that could be used for this area, with some of that money going back to the Red Hook houses for upgrades of its electrical system. So I know that was long-winded, but that's what I'm thinking. Hey.
I just want to pause, to see if we can figure out the audio.
Try to switch to the other one. If not, I can log in.
Sorry if I was more.
Microphone, not the speaker.
Folks online, we're trying
The
to figure out
Warren's
the
Neighborhood
audio.
Coalition for Justice.
Can you hear us?
Good morning, how are you?
With the
I can hear, but it keeps breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's the audio.
And the city gave us
It could be the Wi-Fi.
Brad, so Brad.
What about now?
What is this? NYCHA? Nice to meet you. I'm Mallory. I think you might have been on.
Yeah, we probably did.
Can they hear us or no?
Can you hear us now? I don't know.
Really?
They missed all that good stuff?
No.
I can hear.
Oh, there you go.
Is it better?
Is it better now?
Tell them if the audio is giving them a problem, they can put closed captions, and you can follow along still.
Whatever. I just looked in.
One moment, sorry. It's going to take a moment to figure this out.
Can you all hear us better now or no? No? Oh, can you hear us at all?
The second one to come on.
Mallory, do you know if there's a
Yeah, we can hear you right now. We can hear you, yes.
Okay.
I actually think so. Wait, the key constraints report.
Mallory, can you say something?
What?
Hello. Hi. Was that what you're asking? Yeah.
Could you guys hear Mallory?
Can you give me under Catherine's book one of those key constraints?
Under the tablet?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, I'm making you do a lot over there.
Oh, I could have just gave you mine. The same one.
Thank you. Yeah, I think they got some printed materials of like what we sent over because we were having access to it.
Does someone mind unmuting and letting us know how the audio sounds?
You got this, you got the key constraints?
We can hear you.
It was all set in that folder, but a lot of people didn't get access.
Other than this one, is there any other one?
Okay,
Yeah.
These are all.
I'm just going to get Mallory to say something.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
We can hear her.
Okay, so we're good. If it interrupts, just unmute and let us know, and I can switch to my laptop.
Yeah.
And if folks in the room
Thank you.
just speak very clearly and loudly so folks online can hear us. So we'll keep going.
Can we?
I don't think this is.
Okay, that's fine.
Unfortunately. Yeah, please go
Okay,
ahead.
so good morning, everyone. My name is Josh Pierre. I work at Empire State Development Corp, ESD, in the community relations team. And my first engagement with BMT was when we took the tour. Nice big lot, as you guys can see. And of course, there was the NYCHA Family Day, where there was a lot of great food. Thank you very much. And my main purpose here is to hear what the community members have to say, get input and feedback.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mallory. I am a planner at WXY. I'm really excited to be here today to be a part of this conversation. Let me get the prompt back. So my first experience with BMT was about a month ago, because that's when I joined the WXY team. So really just this is such a fun and exciting project, but really immersed in it and learned a lot about the site, going on different tours and helping the community and our AG members get familiar with the site as well. So been a part of that. And, I'm hoping that this process will be really integrated and collaborative with the community outside of just the site, and that we can do a lot.
What community outside this site?
All the communities that we've been talking to.
I'm not understanding. Like,
I think
how far are you talking? Because one of the things is I think that a lot of times when we involve more and more people, it's harder to come to a consensus. So I feel like you have to start with the immediate community here first, and understand its different cultural districts or thinking, and then it branches out from there. But at some point, there is a cutoff to who can actually involve themselves in what happens in this community, because we're being deliberate about keeping this community a certain character. So
Totally, yeah, heard. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here.
My name is Caitlin Krause. I'm the founder and executive director of Rising Tide Effect. I want to start by saying hello to Ms. Blundell. I've always wondered who you were in person. I've heard a lot about you from the Public Housing Community Fund, and I appreciate your work. I have a program called the Swim Safety Corps, and we work with NYCHA youth, ages 16 to 24. Right now, it's a 6-week summer youth employment program, so everyone's paid. And everyone gets to learn to swim, gets access to the water in different ways, such as surfing, kayaking, but also we explore opportunities in the blue economy. So when it comes to kind of what I'm here for the NYCHA youth, and I'm here for making sure. So we have a blue economy that we all know about today, which essentially extracts from the ocean. Mm-hmm. The new blue economy is not just about extraction, it's also about sustainability, putting back, reusing, repurposing, and for sure, environmental conservation. And with that is a whole new blue economy of opportunities that I'm afraid people are going to be totally left out for generations, all because they are not comfortable in and around the water. Mm-hmm. And so water safety underpins all of this. And so if I have a motivation, it's to make sure that the youth are not left out in the new blue economy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Cynthia.
Morning, everyone. My name is Betty Chow. I am with NYCHA. I recently joined the Government Community Relations team as of October 7th. It was actually also my first introduction to BMT because that was the ultimate public workshop. So my first day I really got into learn a lot about the various stakeholders who are involved, and I think that's also one of my kind of takeaways and priorities to understand who's at the table, but also thinking about who's not at the table, whose voices we might not be prioritizing, but they're here. And so for me, from EDC perspective in my role, I really want to build relationships with folks who are directly impacted by what's going on at BMT, and also think about, folks that are not at the table, like monolingual speakers who might not be involved. How do we think about engaging them in a way that is much more forthcoming? So I'm excited to work with the various stakeholders who are involved.
That's great.
Hello, good morning. I'm Sabina Willis. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Organizing here at Red Hook Initiative. And basically, I co-lead with my team of public housing organizing campaigns. That's the short version of what I do. I don't have much experience with the BMT except for, besides what I hear, the history behind it and the concerns from my neighbors over the 16 years that I've lived in this community. And I too went on the tour with Catherine and a group of us, and I didn't realize how huge that space is. And I do feel like there is potential for a lot of building, but my concern is that almost all of the development and redesign in this community does not take into consideration any individual that lives in this community, and namely the public housing residents. So that's basically why I'm sitting at this table right now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Rice. I'm an associate principal with WXY Studio. We're working with EDC to support the planning process for the vision for Brooklyn Marine Terminal. I'm personally really excited to be working in the Red Hook community again. Going way back, Catherine was actually just showing me photos. I participated in a fellowship working with NYCHA Youth, focused on stormwater retention strategies back in 2015. I live. Maybe you recognize this.
I showed him now. I was like, is this you? Oh my God! You gotta send us that.
She was telling me where everyone is now.
Adult.
And I worked on the 2015 diversity plan, which also involved the resident community, so I'm excited
That's where I recognize
to
you.
be here. My experience at the terminal was, when I started this project over the summer, kind of touring and seeing the space for the first time. And what I hope will come from this process, I really hope that we can center the NYCHA community, the Red Hook community, and sort of make sure that whatever happens at the site really sort of supports the community that's here today. And I'll pass it on to you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the tardiness. I'm kind of slow. I'm retired. My name is Cynthia Colon. I'm not only a resident since 1967, and I'm a member of the Red Hook West Secretary, Red Hook West Resident Association.
Say it, Brad.
I'm still sleeping.
Say it, Brad. Get us some
I'll
coffee.
roll over till like 11 because I'm up all night. Anyway, I'm just here. I'm invited, so it's good to be invited and get information on what's going on throughout the community.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, I'm NYCHA McCoy. I am the Vice President of the Red Hook West Resident Association. I'm still learning about the BMT. I haven't taken the tour yet, but I'm still learning. My hope and my prayer is that this community does not get blocked out of any opportunities that's coming in, and that this community, the Red Hook community, has a voice in what goes on at the BMT, because it does affect everyone that lives here. And a lot of the times when things happen, projects happen, people come in, they have words, you put it down. When projects start, none of what we talked about happens. So I just want to make sure that we have a voice in this whole process, that we're educated about the stuff that's being said, that it's dumbed down enough that people can understand it, so that we can move forward and be able to bring it back to the residents so they know what to do.
Hi, good morning. I'm Joyce Day. I am the PTA president of Harbor Middle School / PS 676, and also the Sergeant of Arms of the Tennis.
Coming up in January.
Yes. Yes, and I don't really know too much about the BMT, but I have helped a lot with the produce that comes from it. And what I hope to get from this, a better understanding and more knowledge. That way I can be able to help more.
Then a connect right there.
Yes.
Yes.
And now we're going to go to the folks joining virtually. Maybe Marcus, you can kick us off.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Marcus Berry here, I'm the Deputy Project Director at the Maryland Community Justice Center. Happy to be in this space with you guys this morning virtually. I don't have that much experience with the BMT, so I've been looked into this process, but looking forward to serving. And I think I just definitely want to center the voice of everyone that lives in Red Hook. I definitely feel like a lot of times organizations come in and make executive decisions about community, but they don't center the voices of everyone that lives in the community, specifically people that live in public housing. So I definitely want to center that because I think that everyone deserves a seat at the table when we are making decisions about what's coming into the community.
Thank you. We'll go to Digna next.
Good morning. My name is Digna Lane, and I'm with Good Shepherd Services and former NYCHA resident. And my experience with the BMT is actually I attended an info session last year sometime at the community board, and I think it was Diaper Heights, if I'm not mistaken. And what I hope that come out of this advisory board process is that the voices of the residents be heard, because ultimately they're going to be impacted by it one way or the next. And very often we forget to bring the residents' voices into those space, and that will affect them immensely, because with the construction, with the disruption, and even the benefits from it, there need to be people from the community sitting on those boards and not necessarily the usual suspects.
Thank you, Digna. Can we go to Tiffany next?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Tiffany Davis. I am co-founder and executive director for Rebel Art Project, as well as sit on many boards here, such as Pioneer Works, the Rebel Business Alliance, as well as a nonprofit called What They Do. I have some experience with the Brooklyn Fields Terminal by directly working with the EDC with doing murals. And in this space, I do say that there's a lot more work to be done. The murals are just a spot of joy that we can bring to make sure that they know that Relic is here. We're not going nowhere, so we wanted to make sure we make that stamp so they can continue to have that conversation and know that, you know, the students here, the young adults, the older people, the people that's been here for a long time is tired. They want change, and I'm here to be at the table to help support that change and make sure that Relic don't get left behind. It's time for new blood at the table, and I appreciate those who are here from the old school people such as Karen Fondell.
I'm old school. I'm old school.
So I'm just here to make sure that we can be heard and seen. I have deep ties to Rebel community. My dad's side is from Rebel. I used to live in the NYCHA development coming off the shelter system. My kids went to school here, also work here. So I'm happy to be at this table.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. I'll go to Stephanie next.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Clokey, Director of Career Services with Green City Force. Apologies for not being in person with you. I'm home with a sick child today, but grateful to be able to join virtually. I have done a couple, I think 2 tours of the Marine Terminal, and so have some familiarity. And my hope in this advisory group process is that we are able to connect residents to the benefits coming out of the terminal, especially jobs.
Thank you, Stephanie. And then Tali.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Tali. I'm with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, helping out with the planning and engagement sides of the project. And I first heard of Brooklyn Marine Terminal because I live in South Brooklyn. I've spent some time in the area, but relatively new to the project. I just started, so I'm really just looking forward to hearing from all of you and hearing your perspectives.
Great. Thank you. We got everyone, right? Okay. Excellent. And folks online, I'm sharing screen, so again, feel free to jump in.
Can I ask?
If you have questions.
I do have questions.
Yeah.
So Green City Force, is that the startup from NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority? Right.
Sorry, I heard the question directed to me, but I didn't hear the full
Yeah, I just wanted you to expound a little more on what you think your connection would be with the BMT. Like, what is your vision? What do you? Because I think when I think of Green City Force, I'm thinking of landscaping. I'm thinking of the farms that are on these public housing sites. What exactly, like, what are you thinking of when you think of the BMT in regards to workforce?
Sure. I think I have 2 answers there. Is that one is Green City Force recruits throughout all of the NYCHA developments, including in Red Hook. And yes, some of our work is connected to the farms at NYCHA, but we also do sustainability training across the board. And so the Marine Terminal and the waterfront resilience work that is happening is absolutely connected to the work that we're training young NYCHA residents to be a part of and engaged in. I will also be totally transparent, is that Tanya Gale, our executive director, had a conflict this morning and asked me to step in her to, be a voice for Green City Force here and really to spend a lot of my time listening and hear about what's going on and think about how we could be of a support. And so that is my role and what I'm also hoping to get out of this message today. Sorry for the crying.
No. Thank you so much. Just one follow-up. Can you give me an example of the sustainability training? What are you talking about? Are you talking solar panels? Are you talking wind, offshore wind? What are you talking about? That you already do.
We're doing electric vehicle infrastructure. We're doing solar panels. We're doing wind. Also a lot of resilience work along the waterfronts.
Okay.
Not us doing that training in-house, but preparing folks for that type of work. Knowing that the sea levels are rising, that the infrastructure that we're putting in around the city, the seawalls, to make sure that the city is able to be resilient as the climate continues to change, and knowing that the marine terminal is a part of some of that work too.
Thank you so much. That cleared up a lot.
Great. Okay. Now I'm going to move us into community agreements, or what we call sort of like guidelines for productive dialogue. And so there's a lot of folks in the room. We want everyone to be mindful and considerate of one another. So take space, make space. If you're speaking a lot, make space for others. Be considerate and aware. We ask folks to speak from your own experience and use I statements and try to avoid generalizations. We want folks to be active participants, so act as a collaborator, not a spectator. And then again, this idea of, why am I talking, or why aren't I talking, making sure that we have space for everyone in the conversation. Okay.
Does anyone want to add any to those?
Yeah.
Sorry, I know we kind of talked about it.
Parking lot type thing, where it's like there's so much to cover, we won't have space. We do have the value of like Mallory and Chris doing the note-taking support, so
Totally.
I feel like we can send that as a follow-up to the things we know we want to come back to as a group.
Yes. Appreciate that. Anything else folks want to add or throw in here? We can always come back to it.
Where are you reading that from? Because all these papers, I'm not following.
Yes, this isn't in the preview, but we will share this.
All right, thank you.
And in future meetings, we can have this printed as well. Sorry, it's a little bit small up here. So I think it is important just to provide some context for the project and sort of level set. I know we've got folks who have seen this before, so bear with me here. But these are the project goals that the city set out, and this is sort of the frame that they're asking the community to work within. So these are the project goals: support a clean and modern maritime port that creates jobs and industry growth, reduce emissions across operations and related activity, create a new mixed-use residential development of the community, and invest in neighborhood opportunities, and create open space and waterfront access, integrate environmental justice by addressing current and historic environmental inequities, complement and connect with the surrounding communities and neighborhoods, protect the site against increasing threats from climate change, improve mobility and mitigate traffic disruption, and support the long-term financial sustainability of the site. I will say, just to be fully candid and transparent, that's a lot of goals, and that's come up in a lot of other meetings, which is how can this site achieve all of these things and do it well? And so I think that is definitely a tension that's in the project, is that there's a lot of goals that the city and state are trying to achieve with the site. So I just want to acknowledge that.
I have a question.
Yes.
I met you at the meeting that they had at the rec, not the rec.
Mikio?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Is this online already?
These goals are online.
Okay. You have email? You have that information at the
Yeah, we can, and we're going to share this deck with the whole group following this meeting as well. Yeah. I think a lot of folks are familiar with the site, but it's good to sort of level set. So this is a map of the BMT. This is the site for the master planning process. It runs from Pier 7 at the north, sort of right next to Brooklyn Heights, right adjacent to Brooklyn Bridge Park, and it runs south, Piers 8, 9A, and 9B, sort of adjacent to Cobble Hill, the Columbia Street Waterfront District. It includes Pier 10, which is currently the Red Hook Container Terminal, and then continues down into Red Hook, Pier 11, and Pier 12, the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal. So you can see it's a really large site. It's 122 acres. It spans several neighborhoods. So this is a really unique and interesting opportunity for the city and the community, because it is such a large site for the redevelopment. It's very rare for the city to have such a large site for consideration.
Could you just break down the two city council districts, because that was an issue that came up at a listening tour. We were in the room, I told you, last week with Dr. Rainey, and we were at the Columbia Waterfront, which is on the upper side of Columbia Street, but the difference is they're probably more concerned with, their views and not wanting any luxury housing. Whereas on this side of Columbia Street, we already told you what we're interested in. And so I had to point out to them that, number one, we're not in the same district. That's Shahana's district over there.
That's right.
And this is Alexa's district.
That's
so
right.
that, and then how many zip codes is that?
That I would have to get back to you.
Yeah,
On
I think it's 2. And 11217 or 20. 11201.
201's over there.
And yes, and to your point, Councilmember Alexa Vilas, which represents Red Hook, she's on part of the task force leadership and also on the task force, and then Councilmember Shanif is also on the task force as well.
And is that because she shares the majority of this site? Because that's good to know too when we're leveraging our confidence out here.
Yes, my understanding, and I want to confirm this, is that the majority of the site falls within Councilmember Alexa Vilas' district, but I want to confirm that.
So one of the goals was resilience and stuff like that. Is this site also meant to protect the communities from flooding?
I think that's an open question in the planning process, and we have a little bit more information to touch on that coming in this presentation. But yes, I think the city wants to think about this site. One, resiliency is going to be a key aspect of this.
And the Brooklyn Greenway is there, right?
That's right.
Which is elevated.
Like a comparison site like this, like 122 acres, like how much land is that? Is that like bigger than Brooklyn Bridge Park or small or Property Park?
We have some comparisons, and I don't want to misstate it, so I will share them with you. But we have some.
Okay.
It's bigger than Brooklyn Bridge Park. That's my understanding.
You think so? Because Red Hook is 40 acres, the Red Hook houses, so I'm thinking triple that size is 120.
Oh, well, that's a good way to say it. Yeah, that was
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's triple what Red Hook houses.
And it doesn't feel like that is as big as the BMT site.
Because the configuration is kind of
Right, the piers, right.
So some of you may be aware, but the project timeline was originally supposed to run from the fall into December of this year, which is a very short timeline. That got extended to March 2025. So the leadership in EDC added another 3 months of time to the project. So that gives us more time for community engagement, more time for master planning. With that extension, we've added public workshops, both in person and virtual. We'll talk about that in more detail. We got a lot of feedback on the first style of the workshop as being open house, and not everyone kind of loving that specific workshop style. So we're going to include different types of workshops moving forward, small presentations, opportunities for Q&A, small group discussions, work sessions. We'll talk about that in more detail. We're going to have an additional task force meeting. And very early in our engagement, we saw, both in our survey and the initial public workshops, we saw that we weren't reaching Red Hook residents, we weren't reaching NYCHA residents, we weren't reaching Black and Brown residents, we weren't reaching non-English speaking residents. And so we have been working on a strategy with a number of folks on targeted engagement for folks that we're not seeing in the planning process, working with Miss Blondell, working with Red Hook Initiative. And so that's going to be a big focus of ours moving forward, is to make sure that we're hearing from a more diverse set of folks in the community. So this is the new project timeline. It's a little bit small and hard to see up here, but we'll have our second set of workshops kind of in mid-December. So hopefully those will get announced today or tomorrow. So we'll have registration and save the date. We see these workshops focusing on sort of big opportunities and constraints, sharing potential land uses, going a little bit deeper into some of the specific spatial ideas. Then in workshop 3, would happen in January, and that's where we would use actually a physical model, which I'll show a photo of sort of what we're thinking to help people understand the trade-offs between different land uses. And then in February, we would present a sort of draft set of scenarios to the public for them to sort of directly provide feedback and prioritize. The task force has been meeting sort of monthly since September. Our next meeting is actually today at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Take a break.
Things are moving fast. We're working a lot. And so that will also focus on sort of big opportunities and constraints, and then continue to meet monthly. I think what's really critical to understand about the task force is that we're sort of starting big picture, and then we're going to continue to narrow and refine. We sort of talked about existing conditions. Now we're going to talk about opportunities and constraints. Then we're going to get into site planning. And then we're going to move into scenarios. And from those scenarios, we're going to move into what is a sort of what we're calling a preferred site plan. So that's something I really want to point out as a part of this process. What the vision plan includes at the end is a literal site plan that says, okay, if we're going to have housing, where does it go? If we're going to have parks and open space, where does it go? If we're going to have industrial sites, where are they going to be and how dense are they going to be? How dense is the housing going to be? So it is really a pretty specific and detailed master plan that will guide the development of the site over the next, let's say, 5, 10, 15 years. So that is essentially what the task force is working towards, and what these sessions will feed into the task force's decision making and thinking as they move towards that final vision plan. We're in our first round of advisory groups. This is our last one for this first round. I do think we're going to shift this second round of advisory meetings maybe into January. We want to make sure the next time we convene you all that there's some real specific information for folks to respond to, and so we may shift the timing of that. And I'll talk about sort of what we're thinking for those meetings in a second. Bear with me as I get through a lot of this important context, but there's a 28-person task force. Ms. Blondell is part of the task force, so is Redwood House's
East.
Excuse me. There's a group of task force leadership, chaired by Congressman Dan Goldman, the two vice chairs, Councilmember Alexa Viles, and then Vice Chair State Senator Andrew Bernardes. And they're really responsible for sort of leading the overall process, advising on sort of the key planning priorities as the vision plan gets refined. And the task force overall is tasked with participating in the meetings, and then ideally working towards building consensus around the vision for the site. And I think, Ms. Blondell, you raised a good point that it's a large task force. There's going to be a lot of communities impacted, and so building consensus is going to be a challenge. I think there's going to be a lot of tough conversations ahead. And the idea is that we'll vote on a final site plan and vision plan in March 2025. Just to touch on the advisory groups and sort of what your role is, we want you to come and participate actively in the meetings. We really want you to provide direct feedback on the planning framework and the site plan and scenarios as they get developed. And our role as facilitators is to take what we're hearing today, bring it to the project team, bring it to the task force so that they can understand what your priorities are as we sort of, again, work on that final vision plan. And we're also hoping that you communicate, and share updates about the project so that we can have a robust and diverse set of folks engaged in the process as well. So this is kind of just a high-level outline of what we're thinking for the advisory group meetings. We're in meeting 1. Today's conversation, I think, is going to be more about level setting, understanding the process, sort of high-level priorities and concerns. In meeting 2, I think we'll want to have either some site plans or scenarios, or get into some of those specific site ideas to have you all respond to those. Probably in January. And then the third meeting, at that point, we should either have a final set of scenarios or a site plan for you all to directly provide feedback on. So it's, again, starting kind of big picture, and then we're going to get more and more specific on the site plan and scenarios as we move through the process. I want to talk about the public workshops for a moment. We are imagining kind of a series of 4. We've already had public workshop 1 already. This is a picture from our workshop in September at the NYCHA Center, where we really just introduced the planning process.
Where did all those people come from? Because they didn't come from the houses.
Yeah.
So where did they come from? Do you have some kind of
we collected zip code information,
yeah,
and people registered.
Yeah.
So
they still going to be in our zip code, but is there? Because I saw maps right after the election where you could press on that map and know your building how they voted.
Yes.
Do you have that data? Because I don't recognize those people, and some of that was I saw Milan from Fifth Avenue Committee. One of the things I'm concerned with was 2 things: compromise of 1877. I'm really
Can you say more about what you
Yeah. So that's we spent all our time in here, like I did with the Community Climate Protection Act. That was one of my first campaigns ever. And I went gun-ho. We took the residents up to Washington, to Albany. We did everything. And I remember the night Cuomo was passing it and how I felt, victorious. By the morning, there was a compromise that happened where public housing got cut out. And that's always the default. When we deal with all these different groups, 28 members and all of this, when it really comes down to the wire, that last hour, they cut us out. We have to make sure, like we did in Gowanus, that can't happen. If you cut us out, everything is off the table. You have to say that. Because they have more strength than we do in their organizing. And you have to organize us differently.
Understood.
And so, to me, that's where the bias, the classism, and the caste has to be watched. It's not just about racism in this country. We're caste.
We can all.
I could do a big push, you know me.
Yeah. But that's part of what we can develop.
Yeah, we just have to really set that clearly and have people agree to the fact that when we go in with whatever these priorities are, it's not we start off with 4 and we can cut you out at the last minute. We have to maintain the 4.
Yeah.
Whatever those things are.
Right.
Totally heard. Yeah, I just want to reemphasize, like, yes, we're having these larger public meetings, but we know that that's not enough to reach everyone, and so that's why we have a more targeted strategy to reach NYCHA residents specifically. So workshop 2, I'm going to try to move through this quickly so we can get to the discussion, but we imagine this sort of central presentation, small breakout groups and discussion, opportunity for Q&A. For workshop 3, we imagine this as small group work sessions. We want to use a model to help people think about potential land uses on the site and sort of understand the trade-offs between different land uses. Don't be thrown off by the image here. The model we're building is specific. It's a 2-scale model of the site itself, of the port and the surrounding community. And then, again, don't be thrown off by the image, but the idea with the 4th workshop is that folks will have a set of scenarios and folks can actually interact, see them in person, prioritize, and sort of provide direct feedback on those.
Where was that? Was that Gowanus? Where was that?
This is from Boston. This is not New York.
Get rid of that red.
Don't be thrown off.
We'll get questions
every I'm going to move through this quickly. We've reached around over 1,800 community members to date. We had 450 folks join the information session over the summer. We had almost 300 people participate in the first couple of public workshops, and we had an initial community survey that reached over 800 folks. Again, this data really represents the white parts of the surrounding communities, wealthier parts of the community, and so we are taking this information. It's important information, but we know it's not fully representative of everyone in the surrounding communities, and we acknowledge that. Again, just from the McKeo Center, this is from the 2nd workshop on October 7th. And then this, I just want to read through sort of what we're hearing so far. Again, understanding that we have a lot more engagement to do. There's a lot of enthusiasm for increased park space, recreational amenities, and sort of waterfront access in particular. A lot of concern over industrial air pollution and resiliency, and the need for resiliency protection overall, and sort of integration with the Red Hook Coastal Resiliency Project, which is ongoing. A lot of concerns around public transportation, especially when people think about potentially adding housing to the site. So how are people getting to and from BMT, and also how are we improving transit in the broader community just more generally?
Definitely.
So people are interested in ferries, shuttle buses, bus routes, better bike and pedestrian infrastructure. A lot of anxiety, as you can probably imagine, around the DQB and truck traffic. I know that's a major issue in Red Hook, especially with the last mile warehouse facilities. So there's a sense that the streets are already overburdened. How are we adding more folks to this community? In our initial feedback, there's been a lot of opposition to the idea of luxury high-rises on the water. I think folks are not opposed to housing, but they want to make sure that it's affordable housing and affordable to people that live in the community currently, particularly in Red Hook. And there's already been a lot of calls for thinking about ways to leverage this process as a tool to increase NYCHA funding for Red Hook houses in particular. There's a tension between wanting to preserve the industry.
Wait, say that little part again, because NYCHA is a black hole. I gotta hear that little part again.
No, NYCHA for Red Hook houses. Increase NYCHA funding for Red Hook houses.
Oh, specific, right? Exactly.
There's a tension between wanting to preserve industry on the waterfront, but also how do you do that in a way where you're protecting the health and safety of neighboring residents. So how do you have industry and residential together? People are interested in trying to understand that more. There's a desire to support local businesses in the area. And sort of some mixed feedback on the cruise industry in particular, but I think that's largely due to like the traffic impacts that it has specifically, but also just pollution related to that. And then there's been a lot of discussion around sort of educational programming to support maritime jobs, sustainability jobs, resiliency related jobs, and prioritizing those for local community members in terms of employment opportunities. So again, we've only had sort of one initial set of engagement, but these are some of the emerging themes that are coming out of those conversations. Okay. Any questions so far? So I'm going to pause there.
Look at our beautiful space. Look at it. Look at Governor's Island.
This portion should be really conversational and discussion based, so feel free to interrupt me as I go through. I'm going to share some of the early planning analysis that's been coming out of the project. I would say we've got a lot of critical feedback on the slide. Some people find them very confusing, and so we hope to refine this information as we move through the process, or your feedback is appreciated. So this is a map of the site. We've got the north end at Brooklyn Bridge Park up here, and then south to Red Hook on the right. And this site is really showing that there's a lot of non-maritime uses on the site today. Around 50% of the site is non-maritime uses. Just to give you an example, there is a beer distributor here on Pier 7, Manhattan Beer. They don't receive anything by the water. They don't receive their beer or their goods from a barge or a vessel. They're having trucks come to the site, and then trucks are going back to the city. And so I think something that the city is already thinking about is, how do we prioritize waterfront uses for maritime or water uses? You know, having goods come in on the boat and then maybe leave on a boat up to Hunts Point, which is a major food distribution center, or going out into the community using like micro distribution, like a bike cargo or electric truck, things like that.
That brings up one issue. So the same thing happens here down Columbia Street. You have a beer distribution down this way. So what we don't want y'all to do is to push all the industrial uses to this side of that, that space, whereas you got your luxury, because I already know, if you're going to put luxury, you're going to want to put it as close as possible to Brooklyn Bridge Park, because that's where the money's at, But they already complaining down that end about the concrete facility, which we've been dealing with for decades in Red Hook, including a pica plant that we get exposed to. And so I don't want the affluent to knock out the actual density of the people living here and have us taking on that toxic burden.
Heard, and that definitely has come up in other meetings, because some people have said, oh, you can actually see an extension of Brooklyn Bridge Park here, but what about equity and park access for Red Hook?
Right, and even if they push it this way, what are we getting out of it? You putting our elevators in that they go to the 6th floor? We're the only project probably in the world that has buildings that go to the 6th floor, but the elevator only goes to 5. Mm-hmm. And I am so tired of seeing 80-year-olds trying to get up and down a set of staircase. That's an ADA compliance issue. And nobody says anything because it's public housing.
And one thing I do want to call out is something called the SmartSec zone, which is because international containers come into Pier 10, which is the Red Hook container terminal, it requires a certain level of security, and that is the MarSec zone, right? So to get in and out of there, you need special certification, or you have to have a certain ID. And so there's this idea that depending on what gets proposed for the site, this MarSec zone could shift, right? We're working to understand the regulations. It's a federally controlled designation, but we're working to understand what is the permitting, what is the process to shift that zone to increase public access. Because right now,
shift it where? Where would you shift it?
We know that's part of the process.
Would it be possible if you would shift it this way?
Nothing's been decided around that. I think that's going to be part of the conversation. But and I think that's really important to know, because right now the MarSec zones are not publicly accessible. So that is a zone where the public cannot enter that area. That is an area where you need a certain designation to be able to access. And so I think early in the thinking, there's this idea of, depending on the future land uses, we could shift that zone to match those new uses. So that's something to consider. So Piers 9A and 9B were condemned, and that's because until city took ownership, this site was managed by the Port Authority, and they were not making the proper investments into this site. And so a lot of the spaces have deteriorated over the years to the point where 9A and 9B were actually condemned. They're not allowed to go. Those are not used today. They're not able to hold certain amounts of weight. And so that's an important consideration. But the city has won a $164 million mega grant, which is a federal grant which will not be impacted by the recent election, as far as I understand, to build a new pier here in this area. And it would be a marginal pier, which is similar to the piers here on Pier 10. So it will run sort of parallel to the shore, which is different from a finger pier which runs kind of perpendicular.
So it ain't sticking out, it's actually going the other way.
It won't stick out. Exactly.
Would it all be connected though?
The design hasn't been, there's no design yet, but it would connect to the rest of the pier, to the rest of the site. That's right.
So let me ask you something, because they said that's gonna be a cruise pier at some point, right?
That hasn't been decided.
Oh, okay, but would they shift, because I can see them shifting, is that big enough for the Queen Mary and for MSC to be shifted? I'm just
That's a question we
probabilities.
should take to the planning team. I don't know what the length of this, new marginal pier will be, and there is a minimum length, you're right, there's a minimum length you need to host a
Yeah, and I'm thinking going past Governor's Island might not be good either, because on this side where the MSC leaves out, it's a wider area, probably deeper. Okay. All right, good.
So, and I think it's important to call this out because I think we want to be transparent around sort of what's fixed in this process and what isn't fixed, and where can the community have input. And our understanding is that the marginal pier, the funding will be used to reconfigure that shoreline piece. And so, again, we don't know what the use will be here. Maybe it is industrial, maybe it's cruise. I don't know. I don't think that's been decided. We're going to have to think through that as part of this planning process. But that is a fixed piece in terms of how that area is going to shift. There will be a marginal pier there using that grant money. Another consideration that's coming up early in the planning analysis is understanding kind of load limitations. Our current understanding is that on these finger piers here in yellow and the yellow hatch, so pier 7, 8, 9A and 9B, since those are over water, there's a limitation on what you could build on those sites because they're on piers. And so there's some limitations as it pertains to weight and the load, and that's true on pier 10 as well. And then we're also working to understand where the Hugh Carey Tunnel intersects the site, because that impacts potentially what you can put on pier 10. It impacts how deeply you can dredge or dig in the water as well. And so these are just some important considerations that we're
probably not happening.
Working to understand.
Those ships would have to be going that way.
You don't want to dig a hole into the tunnel.
I think so, yeah.
I don't know.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So interesting. Oh my God.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think this slide is really meant to emphasize how large the site is. It's 122 acres, and there's a real opportunity to think about the site to promote different types of job uses, green industries, sustainable development, resiliency. And so I think flexibility is a sort of important theme that's emerging, just because as we move towards our sustainability goals and climate goals, city and statewide, we're going to need sites to support that. And so how could this site potentially contribute to some of those green industries that are starting to emerge?
Oh, yeah.
You want them to have these green jobs, but in order to get a green job, you need a license. You can't get a license if you don't have a permit, you don't have your ID, you don't even have credit, you can't afford to take classes.
That's true.
Well, who would be the entity to run and manage the course? That would be the question. Yeah.
I wonder if the city has programs. Are there public programs for driver's education?
I know South.
Not for the city.
South Brooklyn
Usually the
has
city.
Community high school.
Like if you go through, like a HRA employee, they would refer you to an organization.
I will say
The city would provide funding to an organization to do it, like the driving school.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the question that will come up. Any kind of programming we suggest, we have to automatically suggest maybe 1 or 2 community partners that we know would be willing to run that program. Because that's the one thing they're going to say.
Which one are you talking about?
For any kind of programming, like she suggested a driving course there.
Absolutely, but not even
So
just
I said,
a course,
what
we
would
need transportation.
Right, but I said, well, who would be the entity to run it? Because that's why we get pushback from from programs we suggest. That's something I noticed when we sit in meetings. They always say, well, we can't afford, we can't maintain it. Right. So there has to be a community partner. Remember, our city and agencies outsource to community partners, so we would have to find a community
I
partner.
remember transportation
Even if we
alternatives
just find one
contacting
that does
several
it,
times over.
and we say, hey, there's an entity that does it, even if it's not that partner that gets it, they know that they're a community partner and is that type of work that could oversee that.
Yeah.
Just 2 things. One, circuit. I don't know if you guys have heard of Circuit, but that could be an interesting partner to bring into this space that might help the transportation situation a little bit. It's basically a free ride share. It's electric, and it picks you up on one corner and will drop you off in another. And it's being utilized right now on the Rockaway Peninsula, which is a transportation desert, amongst other things. And it was a little slow to get off the ground because of regulations, but now it's off the ground, and they're about a year in, so we could ask to see what they found. And then, Circuit functions off of, I guess, ad revenue, because they wrap the Circuit vehicles with whatever they're being sponsored by. So something to just think about. I guess for me, to dumb it down, it looks like nothing is cemented in this whole project, because we don't know who can carry what pier-wise. We don't know how deep we can dredge, so it's a total blank canvas. Is that right?
I wouldn't say it's a blank slate, because to me the project goals provide a frame and context for what the city wants to consider, right? They want to consider parks and open space, they want to consider housing, they want to maintain some part of it as industrial, so there's flexibility, but I think the city has set specific goals that they're trying to meet.
Okay, because I spent some time with the Blue Highway stuff, and I had known about it because a meeting I had with the EDC last spring, we talked about maybe the swim corps having, kind of a hiring pipeline to the Blue Highway. And so I was excited to see that was part of this space. I think it's the cruise ship thing that for me throws me off, because that's such a different use of this port and so my question, I guess, there is, do cruise ships have to come to this area? They're already going there, it's already, that's a done fixture, right?
That's so two things I think to touch on there. I do think that the city wants to use this site to promote what they're calling their Blue Highways initiative, which is all about using the water to move goods and containers and get trucks, big container trucks, off of New York City streets. Right now we have vessels coming into the Brooklyn container terminal, going back to New Jersey, and then getting driven back to New York City. And so that does not seem very efficient. So the idea is, can you bring container barges to the site and then actually have them go directly to Brooklyn? So I think the city wants to explore using this site as a potential hub for the Blue Highways initiative. That's one. I think two, and I think this is something we'll want to get into more in the second meeting, because we're still doing a lot of analysis related to this, but financial sustainability of the site is a really important part of this project for the city. And while I don't know the exact numbers, I know that the cruise terminal itself is one of the biggest revenue generating uses on the site. So in terms of having some uses on the site that might subsidy or require investment from the city, there are other uses that actually make money for the site and for the city overall, and the cruise terminal is one of those uses. And so I think that's going to be, as we move through this process, that sort of balance of what's revenue generating, what requires subsidy or investment, is going to be a big part of the conversation.
Can I just say, I took that cruise in June, the MSC, which is a beautiful ship, but at the same time, I feel like there got to be some more generation of money from this cruise business that's here. Number one, when you get to the Bahamas and these places, even though they took away from the informal economics of those communities, they got spaces set up where there's goods, being sold. I feel like because of the timing of these particular ships, it's early morning. How are you going to build out an economy that is related to these folks that are coming in and out of this embarkation, because it's not there,
That definitely has come up. I mean, people have raised that as exactly the way I think you're saying, Ms. Blondell, which is there's not infrastructure for people to spend time or even spend money in Red Hook when they come. They drive to the parking lot, get on the cruise, go, come back, get in their car, and then leave again. And so what is the interaction with the Red Hook neighborhood? I think we feel like it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, we got to make them stay longer during that one day, so that, number one, it alleviates the traffic. Everybody's not rushing in at 6 a.m. to try to get on the ship, that doesn't leave till 3,
Do you have information on how much the cruise companies pay the city?
I think that's something we're working to get from EDC. I think that's being analyzed.
Is
where do all their poo and everything go? How do they, no, seriously.
I want to know that.
I want to know where the poo is going, because remember, we found out they had an unmarked sewer system inside the BMT at our last task force meeting, which was shocking.
We'll touch on that. But just to keep moving through this, so I think, I think there's an idea that the site can increase jobs and accelerate the local economy, which was Wanda, I think you're highlighting. And I think there's been a lot of interest in trying to figure out ways to potentially bring trucks off the neighborhood grid and into the BMT site. Obviously, truck traffic along Columbia and in Red Hook just generally is a huge issue, and so I know the planning team in the city is interested in thinking about the site as a way to reduce that burden on Red Hook in particular. And I won't repeat myself, but again, I think also looking at the site as a way to promote the Blue Highways Initiative, which is again moving goods on waterway.
I still think you need dedicated transportation, not only in the BMT, but that connects Brooklyn Bridge, BMT, and Industry City. Because again, if you can't get to those areas using that little slither of port, that means you're stuck on 3rd Avenue or on the BQE. You need a smaller, like what they used to do downtown Brooklyn. I'm old. There used to be, there was an active bus that stopped on J that took the city workers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember that?
Still there.
You need something like that inside of the BMT.
So connecting along the entire
that's looping back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or all of this work is for nothing, because most people are not going to walk that space, because it's not like you're walking down a city block and you got stores to stop in, pop in, whatever. These are huge piers and they are like.
I mean, that's pretty much what that guy was proposing with the streetcar. Remember the streetcar? There was a guy. I don't know if he's been involved.
And then I want a rickshaw.
What about
I want a rickshaw? Not a rickshaw.
What about water taxi?
From here to Governor's Island.
The tracks are there. Like the tracks are in the back already.
Yeah, we need to use. All right, I remember.
Remember the guy? There's like a.
We have trolley tracks already. You could reinvent them.
Yes, they're using it. I've seen.
Yeah.
So that's what. Don't get rid of those inside of the BMT and everything, because we might could use that. And then remember, the city did stop with that thing, right? But I've seen that popping back up again, where they're still talking about. So whatever we're doing, they're looking to do something else within the next 20 years, I would say, within that span, connecting Brooklyn to Queens.
Right. Understood. Yes, and we had our transportation advisory meeting yesterday, and a lot of talk around, as you said, that north-south connection. People raise east-west connections, particularly into Red Hook as well. Water taxis and ferries have come up as well as potential strategies. Increasing access to Manhattan, other parts of Brooklyn, as well as Governor's Island. So that's definitely being discussed as well. This just touches on some of the recent housing developments that we've seen. So, nearby neighborhoods have seen some new housing and some new housing gains and some small declines in housing. So the green circles show this is unit counts that have been added over the years, and then some decline in housing units, and then again sort of marking out areas that are over water, which may potentially create an issue for having heavy loads of housing. Again, I think we have a lot of questions on this slide that we need to clarify with the planning team in terms of what the area that we're looking at and is public housing included in this urban number, because I think that would impact the stats that we're seeing.
You wouldn't do a battery tunnel on this part of Brooklyn, like you wouldn't landfill it and make it strong enough to hold buildings? Like once you get rid of those piers?
I think that question has come up, sort of like how could you reconfigure the piers to support?
Because that would be a lot more land if you did that and you did the horizontal pier instead, right?
Yes.
That'd be a big, nice piece of land.
And again, I think this is something that's being analyzed. We'll get into more. Just like everything comes with a cost, so right. So like thinking about landfill or creating infrastructure to support housing, that comes with site costs. And so how do we balance that with the revenue that's getting generated there? People have also asked us to account for like plan development, which I don't think that this speaks to. So
No.
there's things that are in the pipeline that we should be considering as well. This slide really speaks to sort of the need for thinking about resiliency and flood protection and stormwater retention. The entire site is within a floodplain. As Ms. Blondell called out, when EDC took over the site, we did learn that there is a private sewer system that BMT built. Our understanding is that sewer system manages stormwater. It doesn't deal with raw sewage. The sewage is connected to the DEP system. But our understanding is that stormwater is running into the East River. And so EDC is analyzing that sewer system.
Especially because it's industrial. So when you talk about stormwater.
Doesn't this look exactly
What?
like Raising Liberty? This is exactly
That's triggering.
exactly like that community.
What's Raising Liberty?
Raising Liberty, just quickly, is a community in Miami, Florida, that is surrounded by water similar to ours, and those developments were taken over by RAD, were privatized, and they did a documentary about it, and we spoke with a resident that went through that experience to share with us like how we can better organize and strategize around those changes, and then we share with her information about how they can organize around that stuff. So yeah, and the community, the visual that we saw of their community is almost exactly like this. If you look it up, the image looks, because it was to show that they too were under threat of being flooded after a while. So that's why they did those changes, and the imaging is exactly like that.
Yeah, that is the whole coast. Our whole world, anybody who lives on the coast in any country is facing sea level rise, and some places are actually disappearing. But what year is this projection? Because you're going way in, and I know that
2050.
2050?
Yeah,
Really?
This is storm surge level.
Storm surge. So that's like if we got a storm like Sandy, that's not like tidal flooding, something that would happen twice a day. So those are two different.
So that means that after a while, the water would recede back.
So like he's talking 2050, right? Twice a day we get high tide.
Right.
That wouldn't go in like you looking at this picture. He's showing a push of the water in like by a storm, like a hurricane.
And then after a while, the water.
Oh, it would go right back. It would recede. Yeah. But I'm also looking. See with a canal on the top.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
That's definitely an outfall. That's the canal at the top.
It's
the Golanus Canal.
Yeah.
So that's
oh God! All of that. Oh Jesus! Because it stinks now. Yeah.
But I think this really shows the need, and I know that this is very on the mind of the planning team in the city, is like how are we addressing resiliency on this site, and how is it protecting the broader community as well.
Take a look at this too. One special thing. You see the one area that's not flooded?
Right.
What area is that? That was where McGettrick used to live.
This is it's like Coffee Street and then this area here.
No, where is it?
If you come out of Food Bazaar and you go right, that's like
Right, that's over there by like the Waterfront Museum. See, that elevation looks higher because it's 2050 and that's not flooded.
I do see. It looked like the water surrounded that.
Right, because the elevation's higher there.
That's right.
That's the one place that didn't get flooded, right?
Yeah. In the event.
So what neighborhood is that?
That's this right.
Yeah, that's our terrain is
farther west.
Even in our apartments in the buildings, we can tell like our floors are slanted a little bit.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Yes, that.
Oh, good.
And I'm not creating maps.
Somebody's gonna take the bikes and take them off the street and put them.
No, exactly. So this is the green line that runs along the edge of the site. This is the biggest inaccessible waterfront area in the Inner Harbor, and so as Ms. Blondell called out in our early engagement, there's been a lot of comment around how do we increase public access and waterfront access to the site. Again, I think that relates to some of the planning that may happen with the Marset zone and what becomes publicly accessible. But we think that there's an opportunity potentially here to increase open space access and waterfront access as a part of the revisioning of this site.
We got full of city bikes and other motorbikes right in there.
And I think yesterday in our transportation advisory group, you have the greenway here, but there's a lot of trucks that are moving up and down.
Oh yeah. I don't know how them bikers do it, baby. It's so sensory like this. I mean, how do you
lot of consideration.
But you protect it with another jet, so you push them a little bit in. You're gonna have to take a little bit of the BMT zone. You push everything in a little bit, right?
Separate it.
And then you put a independent transportation lane for alternative traffic, whoever, to run that same loop through there for the businesses that are gonna be in the BMT and for the pedestrians, the public, right? You make a public actual roadway right on the side of the bike lane, on the outer side, so that actually would protect the people on the bike lane. And then we still have the transportation that we need inside the BMT. And it goes all the way around too. It goes past the UPS, it goes all the way around, that's perfect. Keep going all the way to Industry City.
But yeah, so I think this highlights, integrating safe pedestrian and bike infrastructure in an industrial site. That's going to be sort of something that we'll have to think through, peer-to-peer feedback on. And then just lastly, I think this really just highlights, again, how large the site is and how it spans multiple neighborhoods, and that there's an opportunity to actually sort of really try to address all the city goals that the city has set, and also centering accessibility and belonging. We've already heard from a lot of community residents that the site needs to serve the existing community and be connected to the existing community and support the existing community, particularly Red Hook. And so I think that's also just something that's top of mind for the planning and project teams as well. Okay, so I know that's a lot of information. So maybe we can pause there. I want to just check in and see if anyone online has any questions as well. To jump in. But from there, we can either ask, discuss questions related to that, or we can sort of move into the sort of like formal discussion. But we can touch on anything we've discussed. We can move to these questions. Yes.
I just want to plant the seed. Could BMT be a gateway for people to better utilize and explore Governor's Island? So looking at that as an extension of.
Yeah. I mean that definitely has come up. Governor's Island, the Trust for Governor's Island is on the Transportation and Mobility Open Space Advisory Group.
Good.
And they spoke yesterday about how they increased ferry service during COVID from Red Hook into Governor's Island, and how that people have responded really well to that, and they started thinking about they were sort of thinking about it as like they're building their climate exchange, which is all about sort of like educational opportunities, job opportunities, workforce opportunities, and how can we potentially strengthen a connection between Red Hook residents and Governor's Island and expand those opportunities. So I know that's definitely.
Please mention to them that stopping the direct service from here to Governor's Island is a horrible idea.
Thank you.
It's not even the fact that we can get to the city to transfer, but it's an inconvenient, it's not a seamless transfer. It's not that we can get off and wait for the next boat. We have to get off and walk about a good 10, 15, 20 blocks.
If you want to use Governor's Island.
If we go from here to the city to get, and that just doesn't make sense. Well, we can be to Governor's Island in a blink of an eye.
Exactly.
One time I got on the ferry and barely got to sit down, and I was already at Governor's Island. And some of us do programming on Governor's Island as well. And we did that so that we can get residents to utilize Governor's Island more frequently. And they do have some incentives that they provide for NYCHA residents, like either free on weekends. So we need them to not. We cannot lose that. Yeah.
Isn't that an EDC? Doesn't EDC manage the ferries?
Yeah.
Oh, so then that's a question for EDC. Controls the ferry to Governor's Island.
And then we have a lot of students in the community that go to the high school.
Yes.
So them getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go into Manhattan to then catch the ferry back, it's.
And we can see Governor's Island from
We feel like we could swim there, but
we can if we knew how to. But we are close with Carolina, the Mary Wayland, and we know we were in trouble and trapped. She will get in her little canoe and come get us. Yes, she will.
Yes, she will.
I mean, I think
just to say how close it is.
Right.
Well, also I heard y'all have a contract with WEAC and some other environmental groups that is going to be initiated on Governor's Island. And here we are, the microcosm of environmental injustices and triumphs, and we're not included.
Who is?
I don't know. Yeah, who's the we?
It's on Governor's Island. It's going to be on I'm just saying as a pitch to why we need that ferry. We need to be able to connect with these groups that are coming down here from the Bronx.
Yeah.
And we know that Governor's Island is not our district, which doesn't make good sense. It's a Manhattan district.
Yes.
But the poo, or the stormwater, whatever one you want to call it, also comes through Red Hook, through a pipe to the top of the canal. And so here we are, always stuck in the middle and being penalized for things that happened 30 years ago, like the crack epidemic, like the fact that a principal got killed out here. We want to erase that old history. We want to put it into a sea of forgetfulness, like the Bible says. We should not be held responsible for the rest of our lives for things that happen beyond our control in Red Hook. And I was 19 or 20 years old when that happened. I'm 61 now. I want to see Red Hook uplifted and released from any past things that happened, because if we really look into it, a lot of it was biased by this same government that we're a part of. It was the Noriega contraband that brought the crack to Red Hook. We didn't go and bring crack from another country. That fell on us in the 80s, you know? I mean, come on. And the principal, unfortunately, he died. Those two fellas served their time, came back and started working around here as Quakers. So how do we forgive the individual and still hold the neighborhood responsible? That's enough of that. And I feel like some of that is in these ex parte conversations that happen when we're not in the room. So I'm here to uplift that voice and say enough is enough. We've paid our debts. We've stayed in place for 40 years, which is 4 times the average nationally, and we still don't have a good wiring in our apartment.
And just to be clear, you're talking about, like, you want to see investment in Red Hook.
Right, and I want to see y'all talking. I'm planting seeds today. I want y'all to leave here talking about how great public housing is turning out to be because of the model that's being created in Red Hook. Y'all got to say that, because if we don't say it and see it in our mind, it'll never happen. I already see it. I'm giving you the seed right now to take with you. And by the way, my granddaughter is trying to get into the Olympics. She is an amazing swimmer in Long Island.
No kidding.
Yes, she
That's
is.
where I'm
She's
from,
on
and I
the swim
swim.
team.
Yeah. Oh, I got to ask
she's
you about
doing
that.
great. They call her Britney Spears because she is that fast in the water. And she's 13 on her way to the Olympics, I think in 2028 or something.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what y'all are touching on, to me, speaks to this first question, and I'm curious to hear, other additional thoughts as well. So, we talked about initial opportunities. You have a sense of what the process is and what we're working towards. Like, you talked about Governor's Island and access. You talked about, leveraging this opportunity to create a model in Red Hook for reinvestment. What are the other opportunities that you all see for NYCHA residents to gain out of this process? And it can touch on anything. It can touch on mobility and transportation. It could
definitely.
be on workforce. It could be on swim safety and water access. Like, we want to hear.
We need that. I mean, we have a pool here.
Honestly,
but we don't
because
have a swim class.
culturally, people still, we grow up not being afraid of water, and I grew up in Coney Island.
Me too.
So, we still, even today in 2024, people believe that black people don't like to swim, and a lot of my adult friends cannot swim, and it's bad.
Yeah.
Harbor Middle School, they do, before they phased out, they used to do swimming. My daughter learned, I didn't learn to swim until I was 12. My daughter learned how to swim in the 2nd grade. So that is something we definitely need.
Yes.
We can't live by water, and we don't know how to. We can't be afraid of it. Our kids need to learn how to swim.
Yes.
Both they need to learn about kayaking and learning, and this will keep them out. This will get them out of the house and off of their screens, and learning about going to be how peaceful the water is, going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I think that's an excellent idea. Yes. Yeah.
So, off the topic, but related to this, I've been part of a group that's trying to figure out how to get Red Hook a pool. You guys have that outdoor pool.
And an indoor pool.
Thank you.
We have they are?
Yeah, at the new Harbor School.
At the new Harbor School in Governor's Island.
Across from Coffee Park.
Across from Coffee Park.
But that's on Governor's Island.
2020.
No, that's it.
And it was supposed. That was like an old Senator Montgomery project, and it's supposed to be like on the side of Coffee Park towards Visitation.
You talk
There's
about
like
on
a lot.
Verona Street.
Yeah,
Down the
Verona.
block from the old
Verona Richards.
suitcase place.
And the idea was that it would have an indoor pool. I don't really know that much.
I haven't heard anything about that project in a while.
Yeah, they said they was on it before COVID hit, and then when COVID hit, they just
dropped off.
Yeah,
Oh, maybe it's not happening anymore.
what they're doing, yeah, because they keep bringing more people into the same building. So I highly doubt they're going anywhere right now.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Whether it's BMT or not, Red Hook needs a functioning pool that can serve the community all year round. We have a solution. It's a pool that we don't need to dig for. So in theory, you could put it on a pier. In fact, some countries and some cities have done this with this pool. We did a rendering of if we just put a retractable ceiling on the Red Hook pool that is in the ground right now.
Yes.
And then we put the pool that I'm talking about in that existing footprint. This
So
is
you
what
put a roof on the existing pool, you mean?
Yeah, so it would be a retractable roof that we can swing open during the good weather, and then close during the winter. This pool has its limitations, but this was something that we were thinking because what we've realized is that there's no access. There's absolutely no access. And it's not going to come, unfortunately, from people's homes, that water safety education, because people don't have it themselves.
Right.
So for the mayor to turn around and say, well, it's the parents' fault and they should have told the kids, it's like, well, wait a minute. Did the parents even know? Like, do the parents know what a rip current looks like? Could you sit out here and spot it? Right? So this stuff starts starts with our youth. It starts with the seed that we plant, maybe today, or maybe we planted it months ago. There are solutions. I didn't want to be the first to say, can we build a pool at BMT? But if water safety is really a concern, then for NYCHA Youth, it's a top concern, because the people who are dying out there are 16-year-olds coming from underserved communities.
Yeah.
Period.
I love it. And that would also build upon us getting the youth back involved. I mean, I don't know if anybody noticed, but we've had plenty of workshops and webinars here in collaboration with Red Hook Initiative, where the young people are telling us they are afraid to travel this city. Yeah. They're saying it.
They don't want to get on
And so since the pandemic, we have isolation issues in public housing where especially the boys, they're just sitting in that room on that game.
They're not coming outside.
They're not coming out. And so we need to find a way to get them out. And one of the things that I'm initiating through the Public Housing Civic Association that I started, I got seed money through the Public Housing Community Fund to start a driver's license class. Now, I know that sounds weird in a time where they're talking about congestion pricing and too many cars on the road and whatever, but the bottom line is every single application for a job that builds wealth requires you have a driver's license. I mean, if that's not true, take it off then. You know, I have lost many jobs in my youth because I didn't have a driver's license. And because we live in an urban setting that tells us, because you live in public housing, you don't deserve a car. As a matter of fact, some people don't even deserve to see a park anymore based on the design that they did in Red Hook. Now we're in a confine where our children are the only ones who don't have a driver's license. So I got a little bit of seed money that's going to be initiated through the Public Housing Civic Association and Red Hook West in early spring. But I'd like to see us support that as well, because we need to get them some lessons and get them used to it. We need to start doing, like she said, some basic electricity classes. People don't understand. There's 2 wires up there. If you turn off the power, you're safe to touch these. Just don't touch them at the same time, bro. You know what I'm saying? But like, if we don't take time to like build that out, and with all this technology, I got an app that's coming out. It's called Good Standing. They could go on that app at their own leisure and learn something and get a point for it. I want you guys to kind of embrace this. This is the model that we're building here in Red Hook. So stay tuned.
I think one of my questions about the benefits is like, how do you create sustainability around those benefits and not just make them one-off? So I'm thinking about like when IKEA came to the community and there were certain benefits some of them permanent, like the public space, right? There's public space behind NYCHA that's open to the neighborhood, that's still there. But then thinking about some of the other benefits that, would happen for X amount of years, and then if there's no one holding them accountable, they wouldn't continue. And then the other thing I want to say about the benefits piece is I think one of the big benefits to the public housing community here is that people already have the solutions. Like, this isn't a community where, like, I think a lot of times we see researchers or whoever coming in and saying, oh, we want to do X, and we want to know what you think about it. And the community is quick to respond with, we already have a plan.
Exactly.
Like, we actually don't need your plan. This is what we've been advocating for, and this is what we want to push through, and here's how you can be an ally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, with the BMT, it's the same thing.
Catherine, can you elaborate more on when you say sustainability of the benefits? What are some examples?
Like how to
of
make
that?
them permanent. Yeah, so like how do you make sure it's not a one-off so that they can pass the development that they want, city gets what they want, and then the community's left with, nothing 5 years later.
Or at the
Even
body
thinking
of
about
office, start
jobs.
hiring people.
Yeah, exactly. Like
So then
particularly
we're gonna hire,
change hands.
Right. So
Yeah.
we're gonna hire all NYCHA residents, and then body is in. It's like, now we need to get rid of them and hire our own people. We need to make sure that someone is being held accountable. Some contract states that it's a lifetime. I don't care if it changes hands, new company. It's a lifetime for the people that are working.
Yeah, that's on Andrew and the rest of them though, because that comes to with policy. I remember when they put that first store right here, not Fairway, the one on Lorraine Street that's going now. I used to work there. So the first thing I found out was, hey, they're not actually paying my wages. The government is. It's a tax break. So if the government gives you a $5,000 tax break and you only pay me $7.50 an hour, and you keep me for 6 months, that's probably right there, so you didn't have to pay a damn dime for me. Now you get rid of me, and you reset with the next resident. That's what happens in these communities, because nobody watches. You have to go back and see, did this actually change the condition? Are we still all just being cashiers here?
And you can't leave it to the city to hold
Exactly.
itself accountable, because it has proven time and time again that it will not.
I think one thing to speak to that directly is that's come up in the task force meetings as a governance structure to sort of like oversee the development of this site over time, and that the task force in the first and second meetings flagged that that's going to be a critical part.
Yeah.
So I anticipate that as part of the task force meetings, there will be some proposal or idea or recommendation around a governing body moving forward. We don't know what that looks like. There's a lot of different models. There's like the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which is sort of like a quasi-governmental corporation that manages city-owned land. There are other models, and so I think that just to touch on that concept of like accountability, I think is already something the task force is definitely one thing to think about. Yeah.
Just three things. One, I think solutions, if we really want the solutions we're talking about in equity, then it's really all about the design. So this next meeting that we have, where we have like actual tangible options, I think that's when we'll be able to like do some good stuff. As far as sustainability, on the actual, if we wanted to build a pool, we have a proposal that includes being able to heat the pool with a data center. So if we're looking at cold storage and things like that at BMT, then the heat that those machines throw off could, technically speaking, be used, repurposed for the pool. So
Like big ones?
yes, like data centers.
Like the spa in Williamsburg.
Yes, yes. And then the other thing I'll say is this, I'm learning this. Not every partner is a good partner.
Exactly.
And so when you look at, and I'll just caution you, when it comes to water safety, you want to find a partner whose everything is underwritten by equity and access to swimming and water safety. We don't need another blue chip anybody, whether you are called a nonprofit or a for-profit, to come in and continue to serve who they're serving. Because right now the people that need to be served aren't. In our space, we are the only ones who are like only focusing on underserved communities. So I would put the Rising Tide as an example of a partner who long term we don't exist if we're not serving the most underserved, period. So I just want to leave you guys with that.
Oh, I like you.
Thank you. I like you too.
Question about the electric vehicles. Are those bikes or cars?
No, they're cars. I wonder if they're actually technically a car. They look like open minivans.
Okay.
Actually, I can pull one up. I have
Like a go-kart?
I'll show you.
I was thinking of, the dudes in Times Square that pedaled and
the rickshaw.
And I did that
We
one year
joked
with my
about
son
that,
when he was
but-
little. My God, it was like, oh, dang.
And I didn't mean rickshaw from Governor. I meant gondola.
okay.
Like that tram thing that they have in Manhattan.
I thought you meant
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
No, I got on that precarious, that bike with the little cart attached with my child and the ropes. Gosh.
Oh, and then one other thing. We got some shoals off of Red Hook. We want those built up.
What is that?
Shoals.
What is that?
We have some approved shoals that Alexander Washburn, who did the he's a friend of mine that does architecture and design. But he found some shoals off of Red Hook. It's more on the side where the UPS, like over shoals, is where they started to build additional land and they stopped. So we'd like to see, can we build that up to make a break front as a part of the process for keeping the surge out of Red Hook and also providing 4 more city blocks.
For clarity, were they for the
It's
purpose
called We Need
of...
More Brooklyn. It's a TED Talk.
Oh, that's cute.
They have other cars, like they have different fleets, but this is the one that's riding over.
I asked because now you're seeing a lot of reports of electrical bikes catching fire and catching and establishments catching fire for bikers parked too close. Like right downtown Brooklyn a week ago, the Equal Food Store.
We Need More Brooklyn.
That's right on the street.
Alexander Washburn.
A huge fire in that store.
From like the lithium batteries, I guess.
The professor.
I guess I know we're coming up on time, but I did want to ask one question that was coming up in like the workforce development that feels connected. Is a lot of folks there were interested in sort of building out a workforce strategy on either like sustainable, future sustainable jobs or jobs related to climate resiliency or jobs like for like driving a tugboat or like working on ferries. And there's this idea that like you have this community in Red Hook that lives on the water. They're close to the site, and I think there was a question of like someone raised basically like, well, people in Red Hook don't necessarily want to do water-related jobs or
Who said that?
No.
Whoever said that.
I think they raised it as a question to say like we need to ask Red Hook residents if like that's something that they want to see.
I kind of feel like I love the idea of the water jobs and we should pursue that.
Yeah.
But also, when you think of surge, when you think of cloudbursts and things like that, the first thing comes to my mind is mold. We're going to constantly have to battle with mold. So what I'd like to see is having, I know with the Gowanus Canal cleanup, we were supposed to get a super fun training site from the EPA. God knows where that's at. But, anytime you have a super fund, there's supposed to be a training site. If we could get those toxic trainings on lead, whatever that the EPA offers, plus complemented with some of the industrial certifications, maybe the F60 and the OSHA and this and that, we could build like something that's quasi-climate core.
Okay.
And we would know that no matter what happens, even though everything that happens is always new, like now we're in a freaking drought. Right. When do we get water?
Maybe tomorrow.
No, but maybe like this climate core.
Yeah.
One of the things over the summer, just working with the Parks Department, loving this little park we have here, that guy would have difficulty trying to water the whole park during a drought. We need to have people who understand the dynamics around mold, toxins, around when you need to step in and maybe give our trees a little extra care because we're in a drought and we need a concentration of people coming to this particular BMT to water something. We can build a model like that not only serves as something, a training center at the BMT, but also out into the community. Now it doesn't matter because Mo doesn't stop in public housing. It actually does go into luxury buildings and things like that.
So
right?
remediation training.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it is a good point about like having a diversity of jobs because,
Yeah,
for
that was the
example,
point that I was going to make, with this assumption that water jobs. Agree that I don't think that's true, but yes, let's ask residents if they're interested in those type of jobs. I think something that we're seeing often in these big initiatives that have on paper hiring requirements from the local community is that the employers are saying, oh, there's nobody that's qualified, so just can't meet that. And so I think that you would want to advocate for some training requirements, some whether it's pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship opportunities.
We tired of the free apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Get right to the money.
Half of the neighborhood has
So
a
access to those jobs as opposed to an employer making an assumption that there's no one that is qualified for them.
Got it.
That's because the training they provide underqualifies them to get a sustainable position.
Right.
And I've heard this through in different neighborhoods where they offer that the OSHA training and whatever that scaffolding is. That's the bare minimum of training.
Right.
The real training that gets you paid job or gets you union wages is a little costly. So the whatever grant in order. Right, but that gets you on the site and to be a flagger. That does not get you money and that doesn't give you money to pay your rent or to pay your family.
Sustaining.
It is not, and that's we've said this to NYCHA Section 3. That does anybody who does an OSHA training, and when now I can't. Even when I share OSHA trainings out, everyone's like, oh, I have that. Oh, I have that. Because even if you do it, I say if you're going to do that, you have to give them the next step so that they can earn a salary.
Yeah.
The training just gets them on the site and they doing this. And then the job is temporary and they're out of work again and they're backing out the door.
And that site is union jobs, right? Isn't BMT, isn't that union?
The Red Container Terminal is union.
And Manhattan Beer Distributor, that's a union job.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Manhattan Beer?
I don't know. Union? I said the container terminal is union jobs.
Oh yeah, well that's
But that's the thing is, unfortunately with workforce, they come in, they have these trainings, people go in and get those trainings, and then it's the end.
Right.
There's no career after work.
Or they send them so far away from Red Hook
that they don't. Right.
Like it is difficult for Red Hook residents to even travel from Red Hook to Industry City. Those bridges go up in the morning, traffic is stuck there, and people are like, "But you live right next door. Why can't you get there every day?" It's hard.
Yeah.
And you're not paying union wages.
Exactly.
I think when it has worked is with the union partnerships when we had the direct entry. When we had the direct entry seats, it was like you did a training for 4 weeks and you got a direct entry spot to the union.
But how many did we get? Like 0?
No, we got I would say we got.
So I want a database. I want an open database because one of the things is I go through a lot of these processes. I never get the feedback.
No, that's the one you were involved in. That's the one. That's how Shirley got it.
Right. That's one person. This was a $500 million job.
No. Yeah.
Well,
I'm only talking about
we're certifying our youth in CPR and first aid.
Yes.
And they're able to then go out. Some of them gotten jobs in restaurants because of having the CPR. And Heimlich was really helpful. Others are now candidates to then go take their lifeguarding certifications. And also candidates to get into the department, the lifeguard academy that starts in December. In this conversation, I'm wondering, I think it was the woman from the Green City. If Green City and Rising Tide got together and we covered water and they covered green, we meet with sustainable in the middle and innovation. This is a place now that's exciting to come to. Because it can't just be that options are fast food and working in a factory. So you can't.
Because that doesn't work.
But then it's what happens after the training. Like this community does have access to training.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm working hard to have pipelines with connections to actually take a resume and say, hey, Kiara did a great job. Kiara's from this community. She's been in swim corps for 2 years. She's fully certified. She's a great candidate for, your YMCA job. And help her connect. I mean, that's the only thing I've got so far is trying to physically take people's stuff and make the connection.
Right. I mean, that's the work that we do under our workforce program as well in the young adult program. And I think, like, to me, having just lived through the Sandy construction project and seen all that money spent in this community and not seeing the employment outcomes to meet
That was ridiculous.
was devastating.
Yeah.
And I think that with this, it's like there has to be, to me, like the way I've really seen it work is the union connection. So like I'm curious about like what that pipeline to the union looks like, because I think it can just be another training, and it can just be an entry into like a $17 an hour position, right? It's not leading anywhere.
I'm sorry. For me, I've lived in this community a long time, and I've seen a lot of CEOs, nonprofits, whatever you want to call it, come in and out the neighborhood, offering training and different types of, things for youth and other people of, different ages. But the thing is that you're offering them things that they don't want to get involved in. You should ask them, what do you want to do, and bring in a program that they want to get involved in. Because a lot of people work on jobs, and you know what? They only work for the money. They hate their jobs.
Right.
And I was one of them. I've worked Wall Street 10 years. I've jumped around, and I finally wound up in the retiring from my mommy's medical center. When 62 came, I ran. I didn't want them to give me nothing because I didn't like my job.
Right.
I worked there because, I needed to get paid. Right. But when people are happy what they do, and you have more production, you have them, more things going on that's better for them. Not just, I'm just working to get paid.
Right.
So instead of just offering them things that what you think or what we think they need, we need to try to get them involved in things that they want to get involved in, because you could sell anything on the street of New York.
I think that I want to just say, I think that we need both approaches. So for me, in my mind, I want to start reaching out to the grade schoolers in the Harbor School. I want the Harbor School connected to you, but then I want y'all both connected to the DEP, which I put in place with Ms. Figueroa. I have the DEP programs that will be accessible to the Harbor School now. Because when you talk about water, we want to talk about all of it.
Right.
Not just the swimming side, but the career side. And I feel like, at least in my community, I know back in the days, some of the people who actually have good jobs now, somebody in their family saw an application and said,
Fill it out.
Fill that out. And that's it.
Yes.
And years later, they were thankful for that auntie or cousin who gave them that application.
My father.
Because that's how.
Take this city test.
So we have to go deeper into grade school, like Sabina's daughter age, she's very active. She's been an activist since 2. We have to start talking to her in her circle about water with Red Hook Arts Project. That should be a project that you're doing together with them at that age around water and about the type of jobs and so that you're planting the seed. Some things take a long time to grow, like bamboo. But once it grows, it shoots up really fast, really quick, right? So we have to understand the different audience that we're working with. Older generation is going to be more difficult, like my son's age, the 30s, the 40s, because they're cynical now. They've been disenfranchised. So we may need a different approach with that group. You know what I'm saying? But don't forget, we need to keep going lower, because children are very impressionable and they remember things. I remember stuff from when I was 3 years old that I was talking to my uncle about last night. And so we got to go lower, and that's why she's here. That's why I'm going to make sure that the connection happens between, and of course, when your Freedom School is back in session, we got to keep on connecting them, and we need somebody to keep on oversight, taking a look back. Is it where the numbers going? Is it working?
Like an audit.
We need an audit.
Because not everybody likes basketball and music.
Right.
Kids, they're intelligent.
Right.
But we're only tapping into the things that we think they need, you know, and they don't need that.
And that happens
They
all
need
the time.
to, like you said, sustainability. You need that.
They need food, believe it or not.
You
Half of them
know,
don't have it.
you know.
Most that too.
You don't have food, you're going to be hangry.
One of the things we started doing in our workforce training is putting the VR, using virtual reality. So having the young adults put VR and going up and fixing a solar panel.
That's cool.
Love that.
Like some people are just like, this is is not for me.
Yeah.
But that's what I when I speak to them, I told them you have to find your niche. I did explain that working, you do not want to work a job you don't like.
Right.
So we do have to share a variety of career options. Like my one, I tell them, I said my one job, I said each task I do can be a job and a career track in itself. And when you open their mind, they're like, oh, I can do that. Like I said, if you don't like talking to people, there's a job for people who don't talk to people. Who don't like talking to people. There's a job where you can sit quietly, do your thing, and you don't ever have to and you can earn a salary, but you have to do research into that. And yes, you do have to let them know that it's possible, because I find, like, my age group in our 40s, a lot of us don't want to work at all because working does not look fun.
Right.
It's really not to their own fault. It's not that people are not motivated. Working doesn't look fun. We work a lot. They see us tired. They hear us cry broke a lot. So that does not. If I was young, I'm like, God, I would never want to do that. So you have to make it sound appealing and enticing. Like, don't, and I point out their clothes, like, listen, these sneakers are quite expensive. You want to keep being able to do that. These are some, you have to.
And they got to get used to a paycheck, because, there's that period where your ergonomics ain't right, you ain't seen a paycheck yet, you're unsure of yourself. But then 6 months in, you start getting used to that paycheck.
Yes.
So we have to build that and remember that public housing went through the 1996 crime bill. Our young people were disrupted.
Yeah.
And so now we have 40-year-olds who have a workforce mentality of a 25-year-old, which is very different. So we have to work with what we have and really look at the history of why they're delayed in that capacity. I remember the first time they took taxes out of my son's check, he wanted to fight the person. I said, Freddie, that's your taxes.
And for me, I'm retired, and I've talked to a lot of people. People just talk to me in general. I don't know why, but I'd be like trying to keep people away from me. But I sit down and they tell me their whole life story, and I'm like, okay. And then I get up and leave. I don't remember nothing because, I'm retired. My brain be retired too. But I always tell people that, you work, but don't let your job be your only resource. Get involved in your community, because there's money in your community. All these CBOs, y'all got money when we tap into it. You don't have to, drive off of your income, your check, your monthly check or whatever. But, I live a nice, quiet, peaceful life. And like I said, I eat peanut butter and jelly. I don't care. I'm never hungry. So you have to live your life accordingly to how your standards are. Don't look at the next person, because it really has nothing to do with you unless you bring them into your zone. But see, you have to reach out to your community, get involved in something else. They $10, it's a lot. They give me $23 food stamps, I buy seasonings. Hey, whatever you can get. You learn how to live on the standards. Don't live other people's standards. Right. And you'll be more happy when you have that peace of mind. So I'm retired, but I'm good. Like I said, I eat peanut butter. I don't care. You can tell them to reach out to your community, because there's always something going on. That's it.
I did want to say, I just think we should touch on what information this group needs that we don't have, just for in between the meetings. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think we're at time, so maybe that'll be our closing.
Okay, unless there was anything else that people wanted to read.
Yeah. So the question, I think, is just what do folks feel like? What information do you need to inform our next discussion? Obviously, the planning team and project team is going to be working. We're going to have more specific things for you to respond to, but if there are things you want to flag for us, we can work our best to work for the city to get you that information. So if there's anything specific, we had talked about more job data, maybe AMIs.
Yes, that's my question. Because even though we are a community where we have a lot of working individuals, our AMI from when I last saw a chart years ago seemed really, really high. I was like, who makes that much in a year? Where does this person live at in the community? So
do you have that in one of these
reviews?
No, they don't have.
Because any housing being built is going to be built according to that high AMI, and that doesn't work for the majority of the community.
I think also more information about, like, when we talk about the funding streams for public housing, like, what could the reinvestment look like? Like, how would that work? Like, what is the technicality for that sort of process? I think having someone, even at the table, that's like had experience with that and like knows how that would be implemented could be useful in this group.
Yeah, and I would probably suggest real estate.
NYCHA real estate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jonathan Gouvet, who's working on the Chelsea Fulton process that just passed. We do talk to real estate in Red Hook West. As you know, that $500 million went to infrastructure and the outside of the buildings, the landscape. Our insides are still like favelas and informal settlements. And so we are talking to real estate, number one, because again, that topography matters, the geography of Red Hook. It's really hard to get people to come work down in Red Hook consistently. I get it because I had to be at work in the Bronx at 7 a.m. and that's a 2.5-hour ride from Red Hook if you're using mass transit. But I guess what makes it worse on Red Hook is the propaganda, the reputation. So Red Hook has also always been known by a reputation. And so that also is known around the city. Oh, y'all were in the Time magazine, you're the crack, capital, those type of things.
And it's only one way out.
And each neighborhood does know its people. We also have a building that's going up on the corner of Columbia and Lorraine Street. I think that's going to be 200 plus apartments. So that's going to be a shocker to this neighborhood too.
Supportive housing.
Yeah, mostly supportive. And I'm like, come on, we got our own crazies out here. You cannot always mix oil and water, So again, just being cognizant of what kind of interventions we're going to have along this process. Like, I don't want it to be punitive. Maybe we need to educate our neighborhood community offices as opposed to our police department, which is more punitive. The neighborhood community offices are supposed to be able to engage with the residents. So that might be an added layer of someone you can talk to give like a general overview. And that way they are in the loop too. I mean, the more people we can impress upon that we're trying to build something here, the more they'll say, well, let's see what they want to do. But without it, it's going to be really chaotic.
Understood. Anything else?
Anyone online?
So, and obviously, folks, you have our contacts, so if things come up in between meetings, we can be available. Okay, I'm just going to close us out with next steps, so everyone has what's coming. So we'll be working with RHI to schedule our next meeting, hopefully in January, and I think we want to have more specific information for you all to respond to. We'll be sharing some updates on the engagement as well, so we're looking forward to that. And I think it's just worth highlighting again that we'll be announcing the second public workshops, hopefully very, very soon, and we'll be working together on that targeted engagement to really engage NYCHA residents in particular. So I just want to thank you all for such a rich conversation. Thank you for hosting, and we're looking forward to working together.
And don't kill as many trees next time. Bring half the amount of copies.
Do we have everyone's email address? Do we definitely have everyone's email address?
Have you all gotten emails from me?
I sure
have.
That's the first complaint we got.
Too many emails.
You came running.
I gotta get it out. And some people still don't have access.
I figured out what was wrong. If you're not already logged into SharePoint, you can't get the doc.
Yeah, so I think that might be the issue with your...
We don't have a Microsoft account.
Yeah, that might be...
You have to have a Microsoft account.
You can create a free one.
You can...
But I don't want to do all of that. I mean, I got enough emails and different...
We could do a Google Drive.
Yeah, let's do a Google.
We could do Google Drive and add. Then you said you have other stuff on the SharePoint that might...
I'll just make sure... I mean, we'll talk, but we'll try and make sure all of it's up there. I just don't want to y'all to miss any of the information that we're sharing. So that's what we got.
We can find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
All right.
It'll be fine.
Thank you.